I'm sorry. Sarah had my baby, so I'm remarrying her. I want a divorce from you. A woman like you isn't good enough for Mike. A defective, infertile one like you should just disappear. The delivery room echoed with the healthy cries of a newborn baby. Normally, everyone would be celebrating from the bottom of their hearts, but I just couldn't feel that way right now. The cries announcing the birth of a new life weighed heavily upon me. I couldn't believe I had been betrayed like this. There was Mike, my husband, and Sarah, the woman who stole him away, looking down on me with mocking laughter. I could clearly sense the disdain they felt for me in their expressions. It was unforgivable. I had devoted myself to him for so long. Even when things got tough, I had endured it and tried to overcome the challenges. And now, the life we had built together was crumbling to pieces in an instant. That's when it happened. Actually, the doctor who had been present began to say in a heavy tone. With the doctor's words, those betrayers were about to experience hell. I'm Amanda, a midwife in my 30s. I live with my husband Mike, just the two of us. I had always enjoyed taking care of younger children, so at first I thought about becoming a preschool teacher. But one day, a video my parents showed me made me aspire to become a midwife instead. The video was a recording of my own birth. My parents had meticulously filmed my growth, from the time I was in my mother's womb until I was born. Of course, the moment of my birth was well documented too. I got to see it on my 12th birthday. Witnessing the moment a baby comes into this world for the first time, I was overcome with an indescribable feeling of deep emotion. I wanted to be a part of that profound moment too. That desire led me to choose the path of a midwife. To achieve my dream, I threw myself into my studies. I hardly ever went out to have fun, so the only friends I had were the ones who understood my ambitions. One of them was Mike, my current husband. Mike and I were high school classmates. Back then, we were just friends and he had a girlfriend named Sarah. But a few years later, when we met again at a reunion after becoming working adults, Mike had broken up with Sarah and was single. Honestly, I'm so lonely. I wonder if there are any good women out there like you, Amanda. What? Are you hitting on me? But Mike was gazing at me with a serious expression. It took me a moment to realize. He truly meant what he said. After that, we started dating. Without any major fights, we ended up getting married. We both wanted to have kids. Once we were married. So even though we were still in our 20s, we eagerly began trying to conceive. Having been involved in the birthing process, I thought I understood how challenging getting pregnant could be. But it turned out to be even harder than I expected, and I had trouble conceiving for a long time. Could it be that I'm infertile? The thought made me anxious. No. It wasn't time to get that worked up yet. I tried to reassure myself, but the people around me reacted differently. Another negative this month? When are you finally going to give me a grandchild? My mom has been waiting forever too. How am I supposed to face her? His shoulders slumped as he spoke those words. I knew he was trying his best for us. I could understand feeling down if the results didn't follow. But the fact remained that I was feeling down too. On top of that, my mother-in-law Kella and father-in-law Joseph weren't keeping quiet either. Amanda, you still haven't gotten pregnant? Get it together already. What will you do if our family line that's continued for generations gets cut off? You're the wife of the eldest son, so you need to at least fulfill your minimum duty. Maybe you're doing it wrong? Here, let me teach you how it's done. Let me make this clear, Mike's family isn't some big-shot family that owns a lot of land or runs a major company. He's just an average person born to a typical salaryman and housewife. To be honest, I don't think their family line ending is really an issue. Plus, the way Joseph said it felt so vulgar. He would sometimes give me these unpleasant looks that gave me the chills, so I naturally kept my distance. Still, dealing with the in-laws is a must. After all, I'm their one and only daughter-in-law. I need to get pregnant soon. At some point, my simple feelings of I love kids had turned into pressuring thoughts like I need to have a baby soon and who knows what people will say. Putting that pressure on myself would make my health suffer, further lowering my chances of getting pregnant, and the cycle would continue. I couldn't even figure out how to break free from that vicious cycle. But it's not like I didn't do anything. Suspicious of how I couldn't get pregnant despite working so hard on preconception care, I begged him over and over until I was finally able to go to the OB/GYN clinic where I work. The cause of infertility has to be the woman, right? Why do I need to go? You go by yourself. I'm sorry for making you feel uncomfortable, but I want you to trust my opinion as a professional on this. Please. After pleading with Mike like that for several days, fine, I'll go just this once since you're begging so much. But I'm sure there's no issues with me. He finally relented. Honestly, just getting him to agree to come was a huge struggle, but if we could get tested once, maybe something would change. I was already desperate at that point. The test results wouldn't be available same day and would take a few days. So we quietly went home that day to wait for the results. But when we got home, my in-laws' shoes were lined up at the entrance. Why are Kayla and them here? I never gave my in-laws a key to the house. So how were they able to get inside while we were out? I hate to suspect people, but with how tactless they are. If they ransacked the place while we were gone, that would be the last straw. I hurried inside, and sure enough, as if on cue, Kayla was just coming out of my room. And in her hands was a bag stuffed full of something. My face paled, wondering what could be inside, and I reflexively yelled at Kayla. Kayla, what are you doing? She froze for a moment, likely not expecting to get caught. I snatched the bag from her hands and checked inside. It was filled with jewelry that I owned. It even had my favorite necklace that I got from my mom. I kept important things in the back, so she must have deliberately taken them out. What's the big deal? I was just going to borrow them for a bit. And yet you're yelling so loudly. It's not something to make such a fuss over, is it? What are you saying? This is no different from theft. I'm calling the police right now. As I said that and reached for my phone. Wait. Mike tried to calm me down from the side. It made no sense. Why was he taking her side? Seeing red, I glared at Mike. Calm down, Amanda. It's not like my parents came here to steal in the first place. I called them over to teach you how to be a proper daughter-in-law. You had plans to go to the OB/GYN today, right? I didn't want to make them wait during that time, so I just lent them the key. I felt a surge of disbelief at Mike's words. I had a bad feeling, but it turned out he was one of them too. In other words, if we had come home even a little later, all of this precious jewelry would have been taken by Kayla, and I might not have even realized it. Just the thought of it made my blood run cold. What's with all the noise? I was sleeping so well and now I'm awake. Joseph grumbled as he emerged from the back room, likely roused by our commotion. That room was the one Mike and I used as our bedroom. I found out later that they had trashed the place. The expensive pillowcase I had bought was soaked with his drool. My in-laws and Mike glared at me accusingly, as if I was the one in the wrong. Why was I the only one being blamed like this? Weren't the real wrongdoers my in-laws who waltzed into our house uninvited and Mike who allowed it? I was still fuming mad, but not wanting them to keep doing whatever they pleased, I begrudgingly served my in-laws. Then, as if making good on their word to teach me how to be a daughter-in-law, they started nitpicking about all sorts of things.
Amanda, we're out of water. At times like this, you should notice and refill it without being told. Can't you even understand that much?
Really, Amanda, this bland food doesn't even feel like a proper meal. Mike works hard outside the home, so you need to make nutritious dishes for him. Poor Mike, having to eat this kind of food all this time. Do this, do that, this is no good, that's no good either. Criticized endlessly, I was utterly exhausted. How much longer would this life go on? If I had a child, would the circumstances change at least a little? Day after day I fell asleep with a vague sense of unease. There wasn't a single peaceful moment. For me, the only healing time was when I was at work. With new lives being born every day, there was no time to rest my body, but still, hearing the baby's cries echo in the delivery room somehow made me feel a sense of relief. One time, I got a call from the EMTs. Apparently, there was a woman in premature labor nearby, and since her regular hospital was far, they asked if they could bring her to us for an emergency delivery. If we turned her away here, it could potentially have a big impact. We immediately agreed and prepared to take her in. However, when I saw the pregnant woman they brought in and the man accompanying her, I turned pale. Some time had passed and she looked a bit more mature, but the woman clutching her stomach in pain was undoubtedly Mike's ex-girlfriend Sarah. And their comforting Sarah was Mike. For a moment I couldn't comprehend what was happening.
It hurts, it hurts. Hang in there, Sarah. You can do it.
Mike gripped Sarah's hand as she writhed in labor pains, urgently encouraging her. Perhaps due to the tense situation, the two of them didn't notice I was there. She was already past her due date, so we quickly took Sarah to the delivery room. I couldn't stop wondering why the two of them were here together, and I had trouble focusing compared to usual. Still, I put everything else out of my mind except saving the life in front of me, and somehow safely completed the delivery. The newborn's cries resounded in the delivery room. Usually hearing that sound would fill me with deep emotion, but this time I felt nothing of the sort. Once we had finished up, I went to her hospital room along with the attending physician. Only then did they seem to realize I was there, and they both looked shocked.
Amanda! Why are you here?
Sarah and I weren't especially close, but we went to the same high school so we had some interaction. That's probably why she recognized me right away. After their initial surprise, Sarah and Mike's expressions shifted to something else, a nasty grin spreading across their faces as I stayed silent.
Sorry.
We had a baby. I'm remarrying Sarah, so you and I are getting divorced. A woman like you doesn't deserve Mike. Get lost, you infertile defect. I had no retort to their words, but it wasn't because I was depressed. It was because I was appalled at how far they had fallen as human beings. I thought I had done my best to make things work with him in my own way. My relationship with my in-laws was terrible, but I still desperately tried to overcome it. And yet, this is how it ends. This was unforgivable. They laughed at me mockingly. Laughter echoed through the not-so-large hospital room. The other patients in the room gave them suspicious looks. Amidst all that, "Excuse me, can I have a moment?" The doctor interjected. "Actually, the results of the infertility test are in." Come to think of it, I had received notice earlier that the results of the infertility test I took the other day were ready. I had planned to hear the results later, but then Sarah went into labor, so I ended up not getting the chance. And by some weird coincidence, the doctor in charge of Sarah's delivery was the same one who handled our infertility testing. To me, he was a colleague I frequently went out to meals with. That doctor spoke in a grave tone. I thought now wasn't the time, but I quietly listened. Mike, you have infertility.
What?
Everyone, myself included, was shocked by the attending physician's words. Mike and Sarah started shaking exaggeratedly. He was infertile? No way. I thought that, but it explained why we couldn't conceive despite all the preconception care. I had also considered the possibility that one of us might have infertility. Still, the reality of it was a shock. All this time, Mike and his parents had told me over and over that the reason we couldn't get pregnant was because I wasn't good enough. And yet, the cause was unexpectedly him. It made all the days of verbal abuse seem ridiculous, bringing me to the point of tears. Which brought up a question. His infertility had only been discovered just now, so of course he couldn't have gotten treatment for it. In that case, how did she got pregnant? There was only one answer.
Did you cheat on me? You traitorous bitch.
Mike's face turned beet red as he grabbed Sarah by the collar. Sarah's face went pale as she started to panic. Her reaction made the answer clear as day. I couldn't help but laugh.
That's not true. I didn't do that. That's right, Amanda must have schemed this. There's no way Mike is really infertile.
Sarah made excuses in a fluster. But her voice cracked, making it obvious she was lying. Anyone would be able to tell she was lying 100% with the way she said it. Even Mike seemed to pick up on that as he glared at her.
I can't believe this. I was going to divorce Amanda and remarry you. I don't want to raise some kid when I don't even know if I'm the father.
As Mike tried to leave the hospital room saying that. Wait. I stopped him. Mike's face lit up at that.
That's right, of course. Amanda still loves me after all. All right, we can still fix this. Amanda, let's forget about the divorce. You and I can work hard together as husband and wife.
Mike took my hand, spouting such convenient nonsense. Hearing that, I realized what a hopeless man he was. Because I didn't stop him because I wanted to start over. No, that's not it. Where should I send the divorce papers? You know, the house we lived in is under my name, right? If we get divorced, you'll have to move out, so I don't know where to send them. Should I send them to your parents' place? At my words.
What?
He exclaimed. As if he never expected me to say I wanted a divorce. Why should I have to continue on with him even after being betrayed? He had completely trampled over my feelings. No matter how many times he apologized and asked for forgiveness, there was no way I could forgive him. And yet, upon hearing my words, he made a face of despair.
Amanda, don't say that. We're husband and wife, aren't we? A married couple should work hard together through anything, in sickness and in health.
What sickness and health? He was the one who pushed me away first, so how could he say such a thing? It was so outrageously convenient, I couldn't even be bothered to deal with him anymore. But no matter what I said, it probably wouldn't get through to Mike at this point. As I was wondering what to do. The doctor, who had faded into the background, spoke up. Could you please continue this conversation elsewhere? You're disturbing the other patients. I realized the other patients in the room were giving Mike and Sarah disgusted looks. Sarah wasn't in a private room, so continuing this discussion would only cause more trouble. Having judged that, I decided to leave.
Wait, Amanda.
Mike clung to me saying that until the end, but I ignored him and went back to work. After that, not wanting to see Mike, I went home in the middle of a weekday when he likely wouldn't be there, took the bare minimum belongings, and quickly left again. I decided to rent a short-term apartment until I could find a new place. When I consulted a lawyer about the affair, they said I could likely get testimony from the hospital and receive compensation. Reassured by those words, I mailed a document with the details and divorce papers to the house where Mike was probably still living. A few days later, my phone rang obnoxiously. Realizing it was from Mike, I messaged him saying please communicate through my lawyer for the details. But Mike wouldn't listen at all and kept calling during my work hours without a care. Figuring it would be a hassle to leave things like this, I decided to take some time to deal with him. When I answered the phone, Mike skipped the greetings.
"Help me!"
And immediately started begging.
"A real estate agent came to the house. I don't really get it, but they said if I don't move out within a week, the police will. Do something. I don't want to get the police involved."
From Mike's words, I somewhat grasped the situation. Well, I was the one who orchestrated it after all. After deciding on the divorce, I went to a real estate agent and started the process of selling the house. The furniture was stuff I had bought, but I wanted to erase every last memory of living with him. So I told them I'd pay the fees, so please dispose of everything. Fortunately, I had savings for when we eventually had kids, so I figured I could use that for new furniture costs. I meant it as a reward to myself for enduring painful circumstances for years. When I explained the situation to him,
"Why would you do something so selfish?"
he said in a half-appalled voice.
"That house belongs to both of us. The title may be under your name, but isn't it normal to discuss it first? How could you do this?"
If you didn't want it to turn out this way, you should have paid at least some of the mortgage yourself. You're the one who balked at the idea because you didn't want less money to spend freely, right? When we bought the house, we put it under both our names. We promised to split the mortgage payments as a married couple. But Mike broke that promise and didn't pay the mortgage. I had no choice but to pay it myself, so at that time I changed the title of the house to be under my name alone. Since I paid the mortgage by myself, it's my decision what to do with that house. It's only natural that his opinion has no place there. Not to mention, Mike cheated on me with his ex-girlfriend while we were married. What a traitor. In that case, it's a given that he'll face thorough punishment. As I was appalled that he couldn't even understand something so obvious.
"That's ridiculous,"
he snapped back.
"First of all, you're just a nurse. They say doctors make good money, but there's no way a single woman's income could cover that much. You borrowed money from some shady place, didn't you?"
Certainly, his words held some truth. Even if I worked in healthcare, in the end it was just one woman's salary. There was no way I could pay the mortgage on a house by myself. However, I had special circumstances. Actually, my family owns a ton of land. I didn't mention it before because I wanted to be with you without those roles and positions, but I personally own land too and have a huge real estate income. That's right. My family actually made a fortune as the major landowners in this area. I inherited some land from my parents and earned rental income by leasing out that land. He looked flustered by the shocking revelation. I had to hold back from bursting out laughing at him.
"Then we need to do property division. Any assets earned after marriage should be subject to it, right?"
Oh, that's fine by me. But in exchange, I'll also be sending a content-certified mail to your company. My parents are furious about what happened this time. If I don't stop them, word will definitely spread to all the companies around here. You'll never be able to get another job. At my words,
"No way!"
Mike was thrown into a panic. Then, in a fluster, he retorted,
"That's blackmail. What's so fun about ruining someone's life? You evil woman.
He spat those words at me, but they didn't faze me in the slightest. It was clear as day that Mike was being cornered. I did my utmost to be devoted to Mike and his parents. They're the ones who took that for granted. In that case, it's only natural for them to face a fitting retribution. So why are they in such a panic now that it's come back to bite them? I found it terribly amusing. Say what you want. I plan to handle this through my lawyer, so don't contact me anymore. Well then, goodbye.
Wait! Amanda!
I could hear Mike's miserable screams, but I ignored it and hung up. I immediately blocked his number after that. Now his annoying calls wouldn't ring through anymore. Or so I thought, but this alone didn't resolve the matter. One day, as I was leaving the hospital after my shift, a familiar trio came running up to me.
Amanda! Please! Help us! I'm begging you, don't abandon us! We apologize for everything up until now. So please!
That's right, it was Mike and his parents. I couldn't help but sigh at the three people, who were nothing but a nuisance, showing up together like this. Just how much trouble did these people need to cause others to be satisfied? There's nothing to discuss. I told you to go through my lawyer from now on, didn't I? If there's something, contact the lawyer.
Don't be so cold. We're in trouble without you, Amanda. My mom and dad miss you too. Please, come back to us.
No matter what they said, I had absolutely no intention of going back. I didn't want to keep associating with people like this. They begged incessantly, but I ignored it all. As I tried to go home like that, Kayla grabbed my arm.
Ouch! Let go of me! Don't abandon us, please! We were planning to move in with Mike. We prepared for that and even sold our house. But then you sold your house, so now we have nowhere to live.
This time it was my turn to be shocked by her words. Unbelievable, they had gone ahead with plans to move in together without me knowing. I had never heard a word of this. Progressing with such a plan without even consulting me, the one paying the mortgage, wasn't that completely lacking in common sense?
We have nowhere to live, so we're forced to spend our days in the park. Please, have mercy on these old folks.
Joseph said that and apologized to me profusely. Passers-by were giving the scene cold looks. I even heard some voices saying maybe they should call the police. How embarrassing. To be subjected to this in public. I could only be appalled by their outrageous behavior. And yet, these selfish people only thought of themselves. After hurting me so badly, they were trying to rub salt in my wounds. How could they be so insensitive? I couldn't understand their thought process at all and let out a sigh. Then he started begging me desperately.
Please! Do something for us! You have somewhere to live now, right, Amanda? Just let the three of us move in with you, that's all we ask.
It was true that I had found a place to live and moved after that. Of course, I never told him and the others where I moved. That's precisely why they came to this hospital where they knew for sure I would be.
And I got fired from my job too. At this rate, there's no way we can make a living. We can't even eat proper meals.
What? Fired?
Why?
Come to think of it, the three of them were wearing quite shabby clothes. But who could have imagined they had been fired? Naturally, I had properly told my parents to keep quiet since I promised not to spread word about what happened in exchange for not doing property division. My parents understood my circumstances, so they should have kept that promise. In that case, why was he fired?
It was Sarah. When I told her no remarriage if the kid wasn't mine, she flew into a rage and caused a scene in front of my company. In the end, word got out that I cheated too, and it spread, so I can't even get another job. What are you going to do about it?
Well, even if you say that. I never imagined things had turned out like that. The company executives in this area probably found out Mike had betrayed the daughter of a famous landowner when Sarah made a scene at his workplace. Naturally, they wouldn't want to hire Mike after that. Mike, who had already lost his house and job, versus my family that continued to prosper as landowners. It was clear which one they would prioritize. I did feel sorry for him, but that didn't mean I was obligated to lend him a hand. I shook off his arm and tried to leave.
Wait!
But he cried out desperately.
Please, don't abandon me. You're all I have left, Amanda. I have no one else to rely on but you.
Please, Amanda! Don't leave us behind!
I'm begging you, look at me.
I could hear the three of them pleading behind me. It was so annoying I couldn't stand it, so I said one thing to them.
There's not a single idiot in this world who would help lowlifes like you. Give it up and live out your days at the bottom of society.
After delivering that line, I left without ever looking back. I heard through the grapevine that Mike and the others disappeared after that. Actually, when I confronted them at the hospital, the compensation payment was still outstanding. So I had my lawyer send them a demand to pay it promptly. The compensation was soon transferred in full after that, but I had no idea where that large sum of money came from. At the time, he had lost his job and didn't have many ways to earn money. In that case, how on earth did he get his hands on that much cash? They must have been quite frantic after getting that demand from my lawyer. If things went badly, it could lead to a lawsuit that would cost them even more money. So before that happened, they desperately scrambled to get the money together. There's no telling what desperate people will do. Maybe they borrowed a huge sum from somewhere they shouldn't have. They may have paid the compensation by borrowing, but they had no means to pay that money back. Places like that are notorious for using any means necessary to collect on loans. The moment they realized Mike and the others had no prospects of repaying, they probably shipped them off on some fishing boat or whatever. My former in-laws were already elderly, but were they working to the bone despite their aged bodies? I didn't intend to sympathize, but I did feel a little sorry for them. As for Sarah, apparently her plan to pass off another man's child as Mike's failed in the end. Her parents found out about the whole thing and disowned her. The child who was born was taken in by her parents and is being raised properly, from what I hear. When I learned that the innocent child had been spared a painful fate, it was a relief. Unable to rely on her parents but still needing to pay compensation, Sarah was apparently working in the red light district. However, the work was far harsher than she imagined and she was quick to voice her struggles. But with nowhere to go and no one to turn to, she couldn't quit even if she wanted to. As for me, all my worries had vanished and I was enjoying each day. After everything that happened, I felt I'd had quite enough of marriage. I threw myself into my work with renewed vigor. I probably had nothing to worry about, but just in case, I asked the director to transfer me to a hospital in the city. At first I was anxious about whether things would go well, but once I started working there, everyone was so kind. The conditions were even better than my previous workplace. Today too, the delivery room echoes with a baby's cries. For a while after all that, a part of me couldn't purely rejoice at that sound. But time healed those feelings, and now, congratulations! I can say it from the heart. Going forward, there's no guarantee I can go through life without any troubles whatsoever. I may face even more painful hardships than I have so far. Even so, I want to stand firmly on my own 2 feet. I want to keep being the kind of person who celebrates the birth of life above all else. No matter what adversity lies in wait, I'll show that I can overcome it without fail. That's the vow I made to myself.